Today we're going to look at something that's really unusual, and that is a SCR catalyst conversion fault that's active on a unit that's less than 400 hours old. It's a brand new unit, and we're wondering, how can there be a problem with the SCR conversion? There's no other faults related to the SCR system at all. No knock sensor faults, no injector faults, no def tank faults, nothing. So let's take a look and see what's going on and what the right course of action for this was. This was a tricky one. The first thing we had the shop do is run the SCR system test to see if it picked out any parts that were failed. And it did fail a knock sensor. So the logical progression then would be to change the knock sensor, because we talked about the knock sensors are what the ECM uses to decide if the SCR conversion is within limits or not. But let's take a look. So here's a screen print of our faults, and you can see up on top active is 5655, and look over to the right, and that fault's only an hour old. The total ECM time is 389 hours. That's up in the center in the yellow block. But I want you to pay attention to something. Look over at the red bar up at the top towards the right side. This is revision 1 of the calibration. So the calibration is KP10185.01. Remember that .00 would be the very first production calibration after field testing. So this is a very early or a baby calibration. As time goes on, that revision number might progress just a few numbers, or it might go up into the 40s. I've seen them as high as 47 or 48 on some calibrations. So the SCR system test failed the knock sensor, but before we change that sensor, we're going to go and we're going to look at something that was in the back of my head, and I think we need to check. Opened up Insight, and we're going to go over and click on ECM calibration revisions, and we're going to check and see if there's any updates to this calibration. So here's what that screen looks like when it opens up on top. And you can see that there's 3 revisions over on the left. You see the yellow bar or dark tan bar. That's revision number 2. And if you look over on the right under description, the description tells us what has changed in the calibrations. There's many more things that are probably changed. These are the ones that they want us to know about that are important. And lo and behold, 5655 is the fault that we have. And the next calibration software revision or calibration update addresses or reduces the occurrence of 5655. And even more important, look down at the next revision, 03, and look to the right, and let's see what it helps to correct. So if we take a look here, it actually provides improvement to the knock sensor service test. Now this is a 2450, so there's a coupled knock sensors test. One is a static test where the engine just cranks and it's checking the bias of the knock sensor. And then you've also got the knock sensor test as part of the active SCR system test. I'm not sure which one it actually addresses. Maybe it addresses both. On the bottom, you see engine runtime 375 hours. There's a technical service bulletin out, and that basically talks about the after treatment, the ECM learning about the after treatment and learning what's normal for it over the first couple hundred hours. And if it starts failing parts under 200 hours, it can be because it hasn't learned properly yet. We are over 200 hours, obviously, but I think that was part of the problem, because the calibration was an early field, or not an early production calibration, and just needed some fixes. So we had the branch update the calibration, run a stationary regen. It passed. The machine is out on the road running. Have not heard anything since, and we did not change any parts, just updated the calibration. So always look at your calibration revisions and then check and see if they address your problem. Thanks for joining me on Engine Shop Joe.